And boom, negative timer. I promised we'd get there. Welcome to Crank Up. This week's going to be a little bit wild because normally I have all my systems, I'm not going to say perfectly set up, but relatively set up. Over the weekend, everything broke. So I'm not going to lie, we may encounter some technical issues here as I have had to rebuild the entire show on a different computer. Of course, to start things off more naturally, my name is TJ, joined by Ibriz as always, and this week by our special guest, Opal. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel a little bit betrayed that, you say, we're going to have all these difficulties, and it's the one week you brought me in on the show, and it's like, it's a bit of a feels bad, mate. Like
Well,
I thought, I was high priority when it came to like your life, but I see how it is. I see how it be.
the thing I realized was that we needed a guest who would have absolutely no trouble rolling with the flow, so I contacted the most experienced and the most talented commentator I knew. And that's why I brought you on.
Are you sure
Opal
about that?
Casts. Here, I brought in the
I'm
lower
pretty.
third. You
I'm pretty sure you
currently.
know much more, much more experienced people than I
Oh,
am.
he's blushing.
Okay.
We did it. Ibriz, between the two of us, we've got it done. You currently commentate for the PCS as well as previously working on basically everything in North American Amateur. Is that a fair synopsis of your League of Legends history?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the best way to put it. Yeah. Literally had a little bit of like a foot into everything when it came to NA amateur because that's kind of how you had to do it. 3 to 4 years ago if you wanted to get any traction anywhere, and then I only found success when I stopped doing League of Legends for a small little bit and then came back. That's just how it rolled.
Uh, Ibriz, you recently cast with him on the PCS versus VCS mid-season showdown. Is that the full title? Uh, First of all, I never properly introduced you because everything broke.
I
So
know.
welcome to the show. Second
Thank
of
you.
all,
My first time, but delighted to be here. An honor.
second of all, talk me through how it was working with Opal and explain how his systems work.
Right. So Opal and I have worked together quite some time, even when I was starting my casting career back in like end of 2016. I was still in my awkward teenage years that I know that you're very familiar with.
Oh
Um,
baby.
yeah. Yeah. No, we've worked together a while. This was the first time in quite some time. The only other cast we'd done together until then was when I was casting with someone on the unofficial English broadcast of the LPL, and their internet died halfway through the cast, and then Opal was like, play by play for this next team fight, and then I'll come in. And he did. And that went okay. And then we did this MSS, and it went remarkably well considering our track record as a duo. And
What?
yeah, he's
We
Tell
have we have a
sponsored by
bad
Nvidia,
track.
by the way.
Wait a second. No, I'm not sponsored by Nvidia. That's just a leftover box. I'm glad it's made its way into the Red Bull Power Tower area from midseason showdown. Wait, what do you mean bad? Do we have bad chemistry before? What?
No,
What
no, no, no,
happened?
no. We were good. Just limited, very
Okay.
limited experience casting together.
Okay. Oh,
Okay, yeah. It had been a while.
I
It was
agree
good
that
though.
I agree that considering our history as a duo is a very euphemistic kind of sounding language. So Opal, to circle back to NA Collegiate, you make the jump to working for Fun Plus Esports. Is that correct? In China, and then from there, the PCS starts up. You're broadcasting your own league. You're running the production for a Riot heading league. Isn't that the dream?
like it's obviously the dream. I always say I'm absolutely I always say I'm very lucky to have the position that I do. And a lot of people say, "Oh no, Opal, you earned it." I'm like, there's some luck involved. Let's just be honest there right off the bat. But I absolutely do love my job. Obviously. Am I happy that I have to also do production? Well, at first I was like, yeah, that just sounds amazing. But then you kind of start to realize that, having to do production and having to, keep tracks like a lot of casters, when they have to do an online cast or anything, they just get a clean feed, and it's pretty nice. Maybe they have a second monitor over toward the side with their notes. My instance is I have our program to the left that controls the entire production. I'm like, all right, I get to see all the cameras, everything coming in. And then there's like another little window. It's got everybody's audio. And then there's like the main audio going out. And then there's actually network traffic. And then on the other screen, it's a multi-view with, a bunch of different feeds coming on in. And then I don't even have a place for my notes. I usually have to remember them off the back of my hand or in the book that my book is missing apparently, but nonetheless, something along those lines where I do feel like having to do production at the same time does affect my casting a little bit. But I'd be lying to say I don't still enjoy it, because it is actually a rush, especially when some things go wrong. Usually I do my best to ensure everything's going right and proper, but sometimes we have a little bit of a hiccup there and there. Somebody's feed drops out, and then it's a bit of a it's almost like you're having to be a magician to the audience. You're pretty much trying to show as little as what's going on behind the scenes as possible. And a lot of times people don't even know there was an issue until I go on Twitter or I say after the show and go, oh no, we had like 3 feeds drop out or something. It's always a fun opportunity.
I just want to acknowledge, and I didn't realize this before now, we're using, I think, exactly the same headset. I've just got bigger earmuffs.
No, I feel left out. I have the wireless Logitech one that isn't wireless.
But you did finally get the mic arm, so I'm very happy to see that.
I did get a mic arm after you pushed me into it.
Let's talk about that then, because you are running production, you are casting everything. What's kind of your show flow on an average day? You're starting to set up your organization early in the morning. Is that caster note prep or is that production prep?
Well, so fun fact is I usually actually spend the week following our show prepping it to some degree at some point. So I'll take the Wednesday or the Thursday night, and I'll just kind of go over the show really quick and be like, all right, this is kind of what we want to do. And of course, this is kind of changing come summer. I usually only work with Riku, but I know in summer we are looking at adding talent. Hopefully, we'll be able to announce who's going to be joining our team soon. But now we're trying to do a little bit more preparation so that our casts feel a lot more full compared to what they did back in spring. I always like to consider spring kind of the test bed to see what kind of worked at the base level of the show and what wasn't working at the base level of the show, and what we had to improve, what strengths that we could amplify come summer. And we've already started to identify some of that, and so that's what we're kind of trying to pursue. But personally, what I usually do, like for a standard week, is we get the matches. Obviously, I talk to our league ops to kind of see who's starting, and I get all that kind of stuff prepped, or at least kind of set in stone. And then I'll usually just do a test of the show, make sure everything's working. And if everything's working well on the Friday night or like Thursday night when I do the test, I get to sleep in actually come show day. It's great because we are at an at-home studio setup. I don't have to go to the studio, which, I have to, be checking camera. I got to be checking lighting. I got to be checking on our player computers that are actually on the level above us, because that studio also was the studio the players played from when it came to Nova in Bangkok when they were playing. And again, we're still kind of figuring out whether or not we're going to be doing that similar setup. There might be the opportunity that we do move our production back into that studio once things have kind of calmed down regarding the whole COVID situation. But yeah, I get to kind of sleep in some days. So as long as I'm up by around 11 or so, 11's about 5 hours before we say the go. We're on air is literally when I do the desk segment that opens up the show. It's about 4 p.m. local time here. So I have about 5 to 4 hours of just ensuring everything's going well. Things don't really get chaotic until about 2 hours before the show. 2 hours is when I ask usually Riku for her to be online, at least letting me know that she's alive and well and that she's able to connect, or if there's internet issues on her end, we can start solving that. But then 90 minutes before the show, that's usually once we get our casters actually connected into our production. And at that point, we go through tests. We go through, our run a show really quick to kind of be like, all right, these are the graphics we're going to see. These are the packages we're going to see. This is the shot of, Bangkok you're going to see at the start of the show. This is what it is. This is what we're going to talk about. But I honestly say it's a much more relaxed production than I think a lot of other leagues, mainly because it is such it's made by the casting team. In most other situations, especially in like North America, LPL, or LEC in particular too, they have producers, they have writing staff, they have a lot more support staff than I think a lot of people kind of always assume. And a good thing to see is, some of those previews or promos that they put out for the summer season. There's a lot of support staff in that, though that is like for an acting, of course, that actually is a real thing where they have a lot of support when it comes to their product. Here, we're kind of like, all right, our studio over in Taipei and the C office and Riot, they trust us. They say, hey, you guys, we're launching a fresh new product. You guys have been on League of Legends broadcast before. Make yourself a good show and we'll kind of go from there. And they obviously have input themselves and they like to, say, hey, we want to see a little bit more of this during the show. I try and incorporate that. So it's a lot more relaxed than I think a lot of other regions. It kind of also makes it a bit unique because we get to pretty much make the show the exact way we would like to see it as a viewer in particular. And sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be bad, and we always take in outside input from third parties that help us steer the show in the direction that we're aiming for. Oh, apologies.
I think that's a good jumping off point, though. As we, and we'll move on after this. I promise I'll stop grilling you. But this is the question that'll get you in trouble, I suppose. Where do you see the PCS going from here? Because, as you mentioned, it is a newer product. It is a product that has a lot less oversight, a lot less support staff right now. But obviously, it's something created with the intention to grow. You've got franchises. Where do you see it developing?
So I don't know if franchising is the best way to say what the PCS is at the moment. I guess the best way is this is of course our inaugural season when it comes to the league in particular. So we obviously invited teams from the former LMS as well as the former LST to come in and play within the league. There's no guarantee that you'll be seeing the exact same teams come next year. We still don't know. Or at least I don't know. Probably the people above me know. I need to stress this is there's a lot of conversations that obviously I'm not in because I am solely a producer and a caster. So I don't get to know about, the exact league direction. But the things that I have seen that is coming up in the pipeline, especially like some news that's going to be coming out really soon, it's so hard to keep it down. And I can't really say it at the moment, obviously, because I have to wait for it to be public. But I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things for a lot of fans that or players that don't really know what the PCS is, especially to a Western English audience. And I think a lot of people, they always assumed when the PCS was announced, they said, oh, it's the end of the LMS. I'm like, yeah, the LMS is obviously coming to a close, but it's a fresh start for the PCS. And a lot of things that I'm seeing, starting to, again, scale come already in summer and already looking toward season 11. I'm very excited. I can easily see this overtaking what the LMS was in maybe a year or two.
Well, I like that answer, Opal, because it gives me a great segue. Unfortunately, the PCS wasn't able to overtake what the VCS is in the PCS VCS Cup that we just had fairly recently. And
what? Wait, excuse me? We
What?
won? Hello? We won.
PCS won.
I'm
What?
throwing it out there because
Lost the semis.
What?
Lost the
I
semis,
think-
TJ. Won the grand.
Okay, look, I think this game we're about to head into is a great example of what the VCS still has over the PCS. And I'm going to throw it up on screen here.
Complete anarchy? Hello? Oh, this is the Machi series.
I knew I'd get a reaction.
This
Machi!
is the Machi series. I don't care about this.
All right. Well, Ibriz did. He pulled Machi versus Team Flash from the VCS PCS matchup that did happen recently during the mid-season. I believe it was Cup. Was that what the C stood for?
Mid-season showdown. I'll have you
Why
know.
was there a C? Because it was the
That's
MS.
the other one. That's
that
the
was
Korea
LCK
China.
LPL one. That was mid-season cup. We're MSS.
Okay. Well, in the MSS...
Not to be confused with the overall event, which was the mid-season streamathon. We're also the mid-season showdown. That
That's
could also be a
kinda
little
confusing.
bit confusing. I realized that after the show. Yes.
I thought it was under the MSC branding, but apparently I had everything wrong. So Machi played Team Flash during this event, and I have to say, tuning in to watch this series was a religious experience. Because I started thinking that I was just watching a normal game of League of Legends. And then I was like, oh, these teams kind of play like LPL style. And then I realized that Team Flash were playing this game like the LPL wished they had the balls to. Team Flash hit the acceleration button at like the 10-second mark in game 1, and they're already invading, they're already finding kills. It was a crazy series. Ibriz, if you don't mind, because you did pick the game, can you kind of set the stage for why you chose this series?
So on day one, you had Flash kind of overperforming relative to our expectations of the VCS because both these teams had big roster changes coming into the event. They upset over Machi on day one. They beat GAM, who are their country mates, league mates, however you want to look at it. And yeah, they did lose to Talon, who are, of course, the favorites. Day two, though, Machi upset everyone after a disappointing day one. They win all their games. Flash lose all of their games, but still managed to sneak in based on the fact that they won 2 of their games on the first day. So coming into this, Flash heavy underdogs. Game 1, game 2, yeah, cool. It was a 1-1. That was a little bit of an upset in and of itself. Nice. Game 3 was such a big turning point after one big play in particular that it resulted in Machi just tilting in game 4 and basically just giving up after like 8 minutes. We had like 8 kills at the 8-minute mark in game 4. But yeah, game 3 with one big Baron power play in particular was the huge turning point.
So we did unpack this game 3, and I have to say I have never seen Tilt so visually represented after that Baron play. We'll get to it.
All I can really say, and this is from like someone that like who watches all the player cams too while the matches are happening. Machi were gone. Machi were completely gone after that Baron play on game 3. So to my like visually, they've always been a team that they're just like they actually just looked mad in all the player cams. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a quick game 4 at that point. Like we kind of had a feeling at that point. It was like Machi seem a bit gone, and that's always been a team that been a trait of them, especially is if they don't really get their way in the early game, they can have a lot of trouble actually kind of rounding back themselves up and getting back and composed. So I was glad to see Flash was actually able to take advantage of that.
Let's start in the draft then, talking about that early game. We did see a series of really exciting drafts throughout the tournament. I was tuning in because I was trying to get a handle on the meta, and I have to say it honestly didn't help me. One thing was for sure, though, towards the bot lane, we're seeing a lot of the Nautilus, the Thrashes, across the tournament on both sides. I want to start this discussion there, Ibriz, because of course we saw Slater step up on the Ezreal. Do you think that's going to be a key component of the meta going forward on this patch?
Not so much the Nautilus, I believe. That was just them wanting to secure a playmaker for Palette when the Thresh was already taken away. Thresh is like the premier playmaking support with no real answer to it. Yumi, I believe, was banned out pretty consistently, especially when paired with the Ezreal. At the moment, there are a lot of memes going around, and you saw it in the LPL as well, where once the Rework Death's Dance is completed for Ezreal or Kalista, they don't die. Add a Yumi onto that, and it just becomes even more obnoxious to deal with. I think the bot lane matchup is kind of air. The Aphelios is a really interesting one because that is just symptomatic of the PCS as a whole, where that champion was 100% present throughout the entirety of the split. And yeah, I think it's an okay champion, but it's not quite as top tier as it used to be.
We definitely are seeing a lot less Aphelios than we used to. But we also had a mid lane and a jungle, I suppose, that were a little out of whack. I haven't seen a whole lot of Corki. It's been a lot of Azirs. And I have seen a couple Syndras, but certainly far less than we did throughout the PCS-VCS showdown. Do you think that's an evolving meta, or do you think that's a regional playstyle?
That's just Mission.
It's just Mission.
That's just
Mission's
Mission's
regional
Corgi.
play style.
It's literally his 3 champions in spring was Corki, Azir, Syndra usually.
Mhm.
And I only like the Azir and Corki. The Syndra, you literally saw what happened to the Syndra in game 4, and I was actually just so tilted off. I was tilted as a PCS caster. I was like, okay, Mission, we can't keep doing this. It's not going well. But yeah, the Azir Corki, that's just the Azir actually had quite a lot of presence when it came to the PCS because a lot of our teams, they kind of feel like a little bit LPL-ish, except for Machi and Talon. Machi and Talon, and maybe Hong Kong Attitude to a bit as well, they almost kind of simulate a lot of the LCK style where they're much more, if you make
Controlled.
a mistake, we'll punish it. Exactly. They're
Hmm.
controlled, but if you make a mistake, we'll punish it and we'll end the game early if you make that mistake. But if you're not going to make mistakes, we're happy farming it out and then just going into a team fight because we feel like we can execute better. That's always been kind of the motto of these 3 teams in particular.
Before we move on, I do want to just say, and I have it written down here, Ibriz, tell me about Phase Rush Olaf.
It's not. But sorry, wait. Can you show me the draft again? What was it playing against?
Oh God, making me. I told you this was all chaotic. You're
Trundle.
making me quick
Wait, what
switch.
the hell?
Wait,
Phase Rush Olaf was not in this game.
Phase Rush Trundle. I wrote it wrong.
Trundle. Okay. Yeah, it was. I don't know. It gave him less less dueling potential with the Rek'Sai, but I don't. I don't see the benefit of it really. He's secondary support. The flash comp basically just wants to tower dive top repeatedly, which should be easy pre-6, but a little bit more difficult once Mordekaiser has Death Realm. Yeah, Phase Rush Trundle, it's like you can compare him to.
It's a quirky little pickup. It's quirky. It's not like the other
It's quirky.
Trundles.
It's
But it's like oh, okay, so you're literally here for your pillar. That's kind of what he turned
He's
into.
like Draven. He's like Draven, where you have like a handful of okay runes for him, but none that scream, you need this to be super good. Like you can go Conquer, you can go press the attack. Phase Rush is just, yeah, preference. And Yijin plays a lot of weird stuff, to be fair. Like he plays Skarner in Italy before they were in vogue, and AP Shyvana as well. Before a farm meta kind of emerged, which it is now. Yeah, he was playing all of this stuff.
Let's talk through the early game then, because that's where theoretically this Trundle should have had the earliest impact. And all of the focus, it felt like, by Flash was dedicated towards this bot lane. They had an Ezreal, and they wanted to make sure that Ezreal got ahead. They wanted to make sure Slater got ahead. And it was just constant ganks down in the bot lane for the first, 5-6 minutes. Do you think that's a consequence of the Ezreal? And I'll open this up to the floor. Do you think that's a consequence of the Ezreal? Or do you think that's just how Flash are playing right now?
He opened it up to the floor so that you could take the wheel, Opal.
You're the one that was taking the point here. So okay, personally, hold on. Like to the Ezreal from Slater?
Yeah. Because we had a lot of early pressure down bottom, which was kind of terrifying to watch as somebody who hasn't watched a lot of VCS. And I wanted to know, is this just VCS being VCS, or is it the draft?
So the reason you see so much pressure, especially in the bot lane, coming out from Flash was we pretty much saw a big change when it came to their play style entering this tournament. Like Ibriz mentioned, Flash themselves, we weren't expecting them to perform as well as they did because of the roster changes. Stark actually, he's pretty much just a sub, and they used to always play through, I believe it was Yoshinoya, up in the top lane for Flash throughout the majority of the regular split season. So they kind of had to shift in playoffs to being played around Slater, which if Slater's able to pop off, and I think the big thing too when it came to a lot of these drafts as well is the fact that Pallet outroamed both Koala and Kaiwing in a lot of different instances, which is a rare sight to see when it comes to PCS, like if you're a PCS fan, where he was able to actually make a lot more happen on that Nautilus than I expected a lot of them to come through. but yeah, like I personally, it was kind of expected that we were going to see a lot of mayhem in the bot lane. That was kind of our overall interpretation when it came to Flash playing.
And I think your palette call is a really good point to kind of springboard off of, because he was the hero for me. And I know I'm support biased, but he was, and what good timing as well, right as I roll the cliff where he gets a freak solo kill. He was the full support hero, roaming up and down the map, matching the rotation of Gemini, oftentimes completely cancelling out the impact of that Rek'Sai, finding huge engages for Slater. And that all started because it felt like he got his Ezreal out ahead. And the second the Ezreal is, boosted, he can just free roam, right, Ibriz?
Yeah, but essentially, not only is Ezreal super mobile, but he's also super safe. So yeah, once the Ezreal is in a position where he can comfortably farm up under tower without being threatened by a dive, the support gets unlocked. When you have a playmaker like the Nautilus, he can, of course, make his presence felt in the mid lane, in the jungle, go for some coordinated invades. And that's where it gets weird, because the comp, as I said before in Champ Select, had this not been Flash, that would have been a dive top on CD kind of composition. But because it's Flash, because they shifted their identity to playing around the bottom half of the map since reintroducing Stark to the lineup, yeah, it was all about that bot mid kind of synergy and all of that. And yeah, we saw some 4-man dive spot that didn't really work out. We saw a couple of kills here and there. We saw just a lot of action back and forth. But heading into mid game, actually, it looked pretty fine for Machi.
Yeah, Machi seemed to have stabilized. I do want to briefly touch on what you were bringing out in the top lane, because it was part of it. Opal, this was my first time watching PK. I was talking about religious experiences. I was having one. PK this whole series was just popping off, getting solo kills in the top lane. He got 3 individual solo kills in this game
TJ.
on the Mordekaiser.
That
Yes.
is more Stark solo dying to everyone in
Is
every
that
matchup
okay?
that
This
he
was
plays.
where my question was going.
And it's also, yeah, because this is also, like, it was day 2, was it day 2? No, it was day 1 with Stark, where it was like, Stark is having literally the tournament of his career all of a sudden, coming out of retirement to just smacking around with the Irelia pickup. And then we were like, okay, Stark is suddenly, popping off. It's like, oh, damn, they don't even need to worry about Yoshinoya. They can just have Stark come up in the top lane. And then it kind of went back to like what we expected of Stark, where unfortunately he just wasn't able to keep up. And PK was always I would say, a solid top laner when it came to the PCS. But for me, it was mainly this Mordekaiser pickup, where that was the one time he actually like blew up. I think he had like 16 kills during a PCS game with the Mordekaiser. That we were like, okay, this is like one of his go-to pickups. But yeah, I'd say that's more or less, I think he was just a stronger laner overall when it came into the matchup in particular.
It was really fun to watch, and I just wanted to know, is that PK? Is there another the Shy just lurking inside the feet? No, okay, he's shaking his head.
I'm going to do this on behalf of a lot of casters that I know that actually say that. Shy right now, I think you guys should not be comparing.
We should, okay,
Shy.
maybe he is another the Shy, and that's not.
Where he's just going to, like, get destroyed in lane constantly here in 2020, and everyone still thinks he's a god. Because that happens nonstop. I'm doing this on behalf of another caster, by the way, who's done it, and I'm kind of done with it too. But obviously,
right.
I think Shy is still very comfortable top laner to compare people to. But right now, he's having a hard year. All right, let's give him a break.
I want to roll a clip. Speaking of giving people a break, this was, I felt, what extended the game. This was when Flash are going for the 3rd Infernal Drake. And Machi are, like, properly contesting. This was the first time I'd ever seen this game Machi choose to take a fight, and it made the game last a little bit longer. Here we go.
Is that package available? Has to be careful himself, though. Doesn't want to get caught out.
So
Which one is this? Oh, it's this one. Okay.
and hold up, I believe I can.
I can only see pixels on my end, to be honest. So.
Same.
I do have Opal audio here, so do enjoy.
Bruce is still alive. They take down the Nautilus, and oh no, Flash, they may have went a little bit too far forward. The shutdown goes on to Mission. That's a huge influx of gold. Slater, though, still alive. Bruce wants to maybe go over the wall. He decides not to. In the end, it's a 3-for-3. Shutdowns go on over to Machi as well as the Drake.
So that was, I think, that's also the Aphelios hitting 2 items right there. So this is Machi saying, yeah, let's fight, because we're actually at that point, and the Corki was also like 2 items, if I recall, too.
Yeah, that was the first time we'd ever seen Machi choose to fight. They did so with the Aphelios, they did so with the Corki, and they held. They went 3-for-3. And that felt like kind of the inflection point where this game got close again after the early game bullying. Would you agree, Ibriz?
Yeah, I definitely think that this was Machi approaching their mid to late game team fight kind of comfort zone as well, where, as Alex said, they're more reactionary, they kind of sit back, scale up. And yeah, this was not only a turning point, but I think this was the expected kind of comfort zone that they were just confidently scaling towards. And it looked like that was where the game really did shift to just being in their favor concretely. But we all know how that panned out.
That's what we call foreshadowing in the business. But Opal, I want to go to you because this was a point in the game where I got flashes of NA. I got flashes of LCS. And I know that's an awful insulting thing to say about your league. But all of the... Hold up, I've got to get your triggered face on screen. But all of the fights from here were incredibly... I don't want to say pointless, but you were seeing these
messy,
full 5-5 team fights around individual drakes, around individual objectives that weren't gaining a substantial lead for either team.
That's just like that itself is kind of just that's PCS regular season syndrome. So like our league in particular is first Rift Herald, first Drake, and sometimes second Drake usually won't be contested. It's very rare a team will actually contest for a fight. Usually they'll just trade the objective, and usually they get a tower in response, or they'll trade Rift Herald for a dragon. But I think we also set up the fact too that Machi at this point, they kind of were like, wait a sec, we kind of just were able to trade 3-for-3, and Flash was always being aggressive into us. So I think this was much more of Machi being willing to play into these messy, these chaotic fights where if they weren't able to pick up anything, or if they were able to pick up anything, that's always a plus. But as long as they're going even, I think Machi were happy.
And we had a whole bunch of these skirmishes as well that actually really kind of impressed me, where you would see Team Flash go for a full-out fight, and everyone would spend abilities, they'd full engage, and then they'd be like, actually, we're not going to win this, and they'd be able to full disengage. And that actually really impressed me compared to a lot of competitive leagues where teams really struggle to disengage from fights. I was just rolling one of those Rift Herald brawls right there. Then we get to the part that Ibriz has spent this entire game foreshadowing. We go for a big Infernal Drake fight. And I do have... Or Mountain Drake, sorry. I do have the clip, so I'm going to go ahead and roll it here, and we can just witness in awe. Part 1, the setup. Machi go for this fight that you think is going to go their way. You think that's just the end of this whole game. And then it all gets undone.
Machi, the soul point not in favor of Flash. PK takes down Caudy. That's a big shutdown once again onto this Mordekaiser. Mission has to be careful. Stark wants to run up forward, but you can see the amount of damage. The double kill coming out from PK, and Bruce and the rest of the team still alive at this point. Mission picks up his kill as well, and Machi are able to clean house 4 members of Flash as well as the Infernal.
With Carty down, with Stark unable to find his entryway, wondering why he died. And
hello, Mission! Gets himself the quick kill, and the hook lands onto Stark once again. Eugen's already trying to back off, and unfortunately for Flash, we'll see Slater gonna try once more on this Ezreal. The knock up is there.
Oh god, Opal, I hit the wrong clip. I told you there'd be production issues.
Yeah, I was about to...
All right, I found
There,
it.
yeah,
There
what
we
the
go.
hell is that?
Those are some low health bars if he's able to get some decent damage. Oh, the true shot barrage ends up taking down Gemini. This is risky. That's a shutdown over to Slater, and he's somehow able to seal away Bruce over the wall. He steals the Baron. Are you serious? This man just 1v5'd in the pit, got a quadra, and stole the Baron. What the hell did I just watch?
Yeah, that's a good summary because I think Machi, honestly, like I mentioned before, I saw on the player cams, Machi at that point they're like, okay guys, we're done with this tournament. We'll see you summer. We don't really care anymore. Like legitimately, and I don't blame them because like I've now rewatched this clip a bunch and I didn't even realize. I'm like, why did Machi try? Like, why is Mission trying to finish the Baron still during this entire time? You know, you lost your jungle.
Why not just keep the Corki in that bush so the Ezreal can't move up?
Exactly. Like, there's so many things about this play that is like, this is Machi like giving away this game as hard as they did, as you possibly could, because there should not be a realm that this play ever happens, but it did. That's just how it went, and I think at that point Machi realized that, yeah, no, that is a play that should not have happened. We deserve to lose, and I think that was the mentality that just kind of went through.
There's a kind of school of analysis for League of Legends that is mistakes make a much larger impact on the game than individual players, you know, skill capping. The way the game is played right now, you're living at the skill cap most of the time, and then sometimes people make mistakes, and that's where the people that can perform are punishing them. Would you file that play under that, Ibriz? Would you say that that was more Machi's mistake than Slater's pop-off? Or do you credit them both?
It's hard to not credit them both because Slater did play it about as well as he could, except he missed that last Q that maybe would have let him live. Did end up dying on his own terms thanks to Death's Dance, but yeah, definitely you could have sent the Corki by himself to zone out the Ezreal, could have really just played that a lot more intelligently than they actually had ended up doing. It was revolutionary seeing that play in 144 pixels, by the way, TJ. Thank you. It's like watching anime in the mid-2000s in 3 parts on YouTube.
Where for some reason the subs are still clear, but the video still isn't.
Look, man, I just wanted to give you that nostalgia. When I
was like 8 in the mid-2000s,
when
TJ, I don't know.
single-handedly burned down my entire PC over the weekend, it was so that I could load up all these clips onto VCS tapes and send them to you via the mail. And that's how you're watching them, via the postal service.
Oh, like they actually have like a VCR ready for us, and they just show it to us at the door.
Yeah, you've got a little old television and the VCR clips are being loaded into them. No, it looks fine on stream, I assure you, but you're watching it at 144p. We'll get that sorted out. I promise. So all of this happens. The rest of the game, I am sorry to report, is pretty straightforward from here. Flash just accelerate off the back of that. There's this one dicey team fight that I accidentally played earlier, where Flash look like they're maybe messing up a bit, and the Slater is continuing to pop off. So
yeah, it's more like there's no target selection in this fight. At this point, I was like, yeah, this is Machi. They're kind of just like, okay, we'll see you in summer. We don't care anymore.
Well, that felt like just 5 1v1s taking place simultaneously. And Flash happened to win most of them, but I'm not entirely sure why. And they carry that through. Flash then get this Infernal Soul, which I don't see a world in which it gets properly contested, but Machi certainly can't do anything about it. PK, it felt like... I included this clip mostly because of what PK does here, where he goes here. I can throw it full screen. He goes into stasis and then just gets lanterned out magically from the stasis, just because it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I'm also shocked that he saw Bruce there. He was like, "We can fight, guys. I'm gonna Felios. We can fight this. We can turn this around." Like, they just popped everything on PK. And he throws out his ultimate into literally nowhere. And then they're like, okay, yeah, we lose. Because at that
Yeah.
point, there's just no coming back if they reset.
And the game does get closed down. I was tempted to run this with audio because Ibriz briefly forgets how to count to 4. That's one of my favorite parts of this entire clip, is that on the
Thanks.
game end call, Ibriz is like, and that's going to take them to game 4.
Hey, that's what I did at the World Championship when we casted. I did that. Remember that?
I'd forgotten
I
about
said
that.
instead of game 7, I said game 5.
You know, I think it's
It happens.
cursed because I did that on color commentary at the finals for AOV Season 2.
See,
Like,
I think we're just
few
a
months later.
cursed group at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's contagious because Ibriz only had this clip after he started talking and hosting this show with me regularly. So, there you go.
Like a virus.
Before we end this whole recap of the PCS, I do just want to call attention to one small fact. That is that these coaches are wearing suits with sweatpant bottoms.
Well, so this is part of the more, I would say, at least for me, that's like working at home. Like you don't get to
Right.
see what's below here,
But
but
Awful.
I might be dressed up on top.
awful. I just wanted to, commend them because this is the caster outfit. Don't tell
Oh no,
me
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
that.
Like
Don't
this
tell
is,
me that at the end of the season or at the end of the clip we had earlier, over here you're not also wearing sweatpants. 'Cause I don't
Oh no,
believe-
I'm wearing shorts actually. I'm always wearing shorts.
Perfect.
I'm wearing shorts right now. Like I'm in Bangkok. It's literally like 32 degrees out in the middle of the night. I'm not going to be wearing bloody dress pants
Yeah.
in like the middle of the day.
The work from home caster outfit is carried as well by the coaches in the PCS.
Well, the secret is usually like when they're on stage too. Like remember the framing you watch, like when you watch the World Championship or anything, you only see the top.
Right.
All right, that's just the standard coaching outfit as well.
You know what?
It's all about the framing.
I'd never seen it before, and I was super excited because I was like, that coach, he's one of us. He's a man of the people. And I've never felt that way about a League of Legends esports coach
Well,
before.
that's either Mountain or not Green Tea. Green Tea is AHQ. Who's also doing coaching for right now for bloody Machi? Oh my lord, I should know this, but I don't.
Dum, dum,
I know it's
dum.
Mountain and somebody else.
I'm not
Everyone
gonna
Mountain
bail
used
you
to
out.
jungle for AHQ.
Yeah,
Good
but everyone
times.
was like Mountain's coaching. Woo! Everyone was excited about that.
Let's bully
Everyone
some
was really
coaches.
concerned.
That's my
Oh, no.
segue.
Oh no.
The LCS had a very rough season, and Ibriz, you wrote that they looked, quote, weaker than ever last split, which is a very loaded sentence, so I loved it.
Bar C9. Bar C9, okay?
Right.
All the other 9 teams looked weaker, okay?
Yeah.
But
like
this prompted
cat-
you to write an article for Qrank GG. You can view it now at qrank.gg, where you said they didn't make enough roster changes during the off-season. I know you wanted to chime in. I'll circle back to that. But Ibriz, very briefly, could you kind of explain what you wrote and why you wrote it?
So, clickbait. No. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
boy.
we were
You're not supposed
yeah,
to say
just
that bit out loud.
with the LCS coming up pretty soon for a starting date. Looked pretty interesting to see if they would commit to a bit of a rebuild across some of these teams that did, start gunning for the world spots, because I believe while China and Europe do get 4 spots each, it's only the 3 for NA. So yeah, you still got a little bit of competition there, and with Spring Split being basically irrelevant, you would think that these teams use that as, a good indication of things going right or wrong and something to build upon for summer. And that's why it's shocking that a lot of these teams didn't actually make any or much changes. Like, I especially criticize CLG in particular because they're my team, of course, but also the fact that they finished 10th and didn't change a single thing, while even the top half of the table teams are making changes, is kind of disappointing, I'd say. Like, they've had spring to experiment, and granted, the current state of affairs in the world does make like importing people, even from Canada, a little bit different and difficult. But at the same time, I do have to question about the strength of the region when you have Cloud9 a clear cut ahead of everyone else. Changes need to be made across the board if the others are going to rise to the occasion as well. Because right now, NA is a one-team region.
Mm-hmm. And I thought this was kind of interesting because it was something we talked about on this show way back when the MSI was first cancelled. We had a conversation on this show about how oftentimes international competition is where teams realize they need to make changes. You go to international competition and you get bodied by people who are doing things differently, and that prompts the top teams to make changes, and there's a knock-on effect all the way down. And we speculated that without that, this season maybe isn't going to be as much of a testing ground as it initially was supposed to be. Do you think that was one of the reasons why we saw this relatively stagnant off-season?
I think that, and the fact that there was a legitimate possibility for no international competition for a good amount of these teams anyway. Like, while I did say that spring was fairly irrelevant in terms of actual seeding for summer, it's still a good indication of the teams that you will have at the World Championship. And I think that's where some of the bottom tier teams do think to themselves, actually, maybe we turn this rebuild split into a rebuild year, or development split into a development year, and just kind of write off 2020 as a whole.
Opal, you wanted to chime in at the very beginning. Do you think this is an accurate assessment of the current state of the LCS, and do you agree with the article?
So I always have to preface that, obviously, because I work in PCS and because my time zone, I can't always keep up with LCS as a whole. But from what I have watched, and from like me, just taking a glance look, and also like having seen, obviously the clips and coming through on Reddit where people are throwing games left and right. Yeah, like I honestly, I can't, I go full agree here with Ibriz. Like right now, it's Cloud9 is the rep of NA. And I'd be heavily concerned because I honestly do think that Talon could beat, your seed 2 or seed 3 from NA easily. Like I know that is actually something that we like internally, like we've kind of talked. We're like, it feels like NA is a little bit weak. That being said, though, we haven't seen them play internationally against each other, and we don't get to see that at Mid-Season Invitational. This is all kind of speculation based off, the fact that the region is heavily dominated by one team, and then you have pretty much a divide of it was 2 games between 2nd and 8th place overall. So that's doesn't feel great. That doesn't feel great when you have like that kind of grouping right now. And to be fair, PCS had something similar to that on the bottom of the standings. We still kind of had our top 3 kind of clear cut. But I'd argue right now that NA is looking a little bit weak. And from what I've seen of like the roster swaps, I say some teams got worse actually. And then there's also like instances where like I'm looking at EG's roster right now, and like I'm looking at their starting roster. I'm like, well, you picked up Hooney, but that now means that you can't play, your mid or your AD carry because they're both imports. So I don't really know where they're going with like some of these changes. Like there's changes that don't make a whole lot of sense. Don't even get me started on Hooney. I think that's like the weirdest thing to happen this season is Hooney in general. And then you can talk about like, TSM kind of, going back to double lift. Okay, cool. I don't know if that's your answer. That itself is a can of beans that I don't wish to open up. I think NA right now just has a severe development issue that I think a lot of people have stressed out about. I think even Magical said it on your guys' previous podcast that, NA's like, we don't have like a regional system like EU does, where I feel like it's a lot more competitive and it's a lot better at farming new talent.
Sure.
And similar over to like LPL. Well, LPL I think it's a whole little other thing because of just player population on those servers. Yeah, strength in numbers come really big. The fact that their scouting grounds is instead of 20 players, it's 1,500 players, I think is a very clear, sign that something in NA needs to change. I think it comes down more to the development of the regional talent versus the imports, because everybody imports everybody. It's just it doesn't fix anything.
I wanted to give you a moment to bounce off that, Ibriz, and also question about those specific changes. Double lifts back, baby. Tell me about TSM.
I think I'm not even looking at double lift all that much, honestly. The jungle question mark is where we are raising our eyebrows in particular. Bringing back Speaker, who of course played in the Gauntlet last year, with the top side of Broken Blade and Bjergsen. And then, yeah, they basically said, you're not ready for the big leagues yet, even if you came in for Gauntlet. We going to put you back in Academy. Attempt to make Dardoch work for the main team. It doesn't work out. Not only is his attitude apparently still a question mark, but his gameplay isn't enough to justify it anymore. So Spring already been written off for TSM. Yeah, and then there was a lot of talk on Reddit when the changes were announced for TSM, where you say, look, imagine a world where TSM do actually get to go to Worlds. Yes, you've seen that Double Lift and Bifrost can be a solid bot lane internationally. Yes, Bjergsen is one of the greats in that regard, always will be, even if he's kind of underwhelming at times. But a top side of Broken Blade and Speaker matching off against some of your more formidable international competition, especially considering that TSM likely won't even get first seed given Cloud9 exists. And then you run a possibility of TSM matching off against a top side like I know Opal hates the Shy and Ning, so Khan and Tien, 369 and Casa, just yeah, it's underwhelming, I'd say, and unless Speaker has, grown massively in the hyperbolic time chamber that is Academy, I don't have high expectations for TSM, but at least they didn't hesitate to make changes.
Hey, that's high praise from Ibriz. I think that's a good bow to wrap this all up on. If you would like to view the article itself, of course, you can head over to Qrank.gg. Or Qrank.gg.
I'm just catching myself up. FlyQuest was able to get second in this split?
Yes. They brought in Solo over Viper, and Santorin played the best split of his life. Ignal was very good. Power of Evil was solid.
So they just suddenly popped off in playoffs, is what you're telling me, kind of thing.
They were fine during regular season 2, just up and down, and then they had to replace Viper for playoffs. So they
Shout
had a
out
top
to Opal pulling up Liquipedia.
Well, I'm like, all right, I kind of need to know about some of the roster changes because this was kind of last second. But okay, if Wild Turtle's coming, if you're telling me I get to see Wild Turtle again at an international event, okay, there's hope for NA. All right,
he's
all right. Okay.
He's not bad at what he does. He's not bad at what he does, which is sit alone in the bot lane while his support roams.
FlyQuest
flash forward for kills. He is my spirit animal when it comes to solo queue. All right, so if he can get onto an international event once again, he's also a Canadian boy. So I want to see him again on an international stage.
FlyQuest or Talon 1v1 for the PCS title.
See, I don't know. I haven't watched enough FlyQuest to kind of see whether or not
I think Hanabi exposes Solo. I don't know about Candy Tank versus PoE.
We've got to move on.
Versus PoE is scary. Anyway,
we've got to move on. We're running out of time. We are heading to our final segment, and normally Opal, I introduce this very carefully, but I'm told that you watched the last episode with Magical, so you're very familiar with the rules of our game. I'm going to give you normally a list of 4 things. Sometimes it gets a little bit fancy. You list those 4 things. You must agree with Ibriz. You must build a collaborative list. Ready, Ibriz?
Okay.
Can we speed run it? Because I really need the bathroom, TJ.
All right, speed run.
Just hold it in.
Speed run.
I have been.
With the retirement of Uzi, many people have been talking about launching an esports Hall of Fame for League of Legends. Name the first 4 entrants into your LoL esports Hall of Fame.
Faker, Uzi, easy. Then the other 2 are the.
Would you say Deft, Homa, for?
Maybe. He went to the same school as Faker. Maybe there's too much of an overlap there.
I don't know. That's the story then. All right. That's.
Do you put Score in there? Maybe Score. I don't know.
Score. Let's see.
Ambition. Probably Ambition actually over Score. Because Ambition was best mid laner in the world in season 2, and then
he had his dream. Yeah, I'd say Ambition has earned it.
I don't think Score goes there. I'd like to, but I think we need to put an EU mid or.
You want to put an EU mid? Okay.
I think we put Xpeke. I don't know. Think about it. He did win Wilds.
I don't know. Do we count like the legacy, like the very origin seasons, or you want someone who's like cemented themselves?
It's
like,
a Hall
over
of
the course-
Fame. It's the Hall of Fame, so I think you just get legacy players.
just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
I guess you could.
It's up to
I don't
you.
know about that. I just
No,
like you look at
think
that
about it.
list. You look at that list. You kind of think one of these things ain't like the other.
Do you put Mad Life there then? Mad Life because he Diamond Procs because he revolutionized the jungle.
I shouldn't say that. Xpeke was very nice to me when he visited.
Yeah,
I love the
see?
I love the lad actually.
Diamond Procs, I'd say over Xpeke. He made jungling what it was.
True. I think that's fair. That's fair. If you want some EU in there, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, did I spell that remotely right?
It's
I
an
thought it
X
was-
and not a CS.
It's an X. Yeah, I was about to say. I'm pretty sure it's an X.
I've never see because I'm relatively new to League of Legends. You're like Diamond Procs. I'm like I've never heard of that guy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we need a Hall of Fame, so that you
He
can
invented
preserve
counter
the memory.
jungling, TJ.
All right, that's a good reason. Tell me, are you happy with this list?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Last second dissent from Opal, but I think that's our LoL Esports Hall of Fame from the Qrank GG podcast. Tell me about what you see in the LCS future. Here are 4 options. Team Liquid could put out the trash fire that was their last season and step right back up to win the LCS, Dignitas, show up to play, Cloud9 win again, or the TSM resurgent.
Like, is this? I'm pretty sure this is the obvious one, right? Like, I don't know. Is Cloud9 win? Cloud9 win? Cloud9 win? Okay, I'm pretty sure we're like that. Now, if you're doing Academy, I would have said, Golden Guardians Academy win because Raz, obviously, I want to see him succeed as well.
And
Is he
you have Golden
casting
Glue and
this
Keith
split, by
now
the way?
contesting for starting positions on that team.
So yeah, I'd say C9. I'd say, would you say TL before TSM?
Yeah, I would.
I would say TL
But
before
that requires
TSM.
every player of TL to step up again. And I think having all this time with Rocks will probably be good for them. Yeah, TL.
I'd say TL, TSM, and then Dig. I'm sorry, Dig kind of just made me angry this
Dig's
season.
kind of they have a 10-man roster at least. That's good.
Yeah, sure, 10-man roster is great, but you need to make a good roster
It's
out
like-
of those 10 players.
It's literally 10 perennially 5th players, like 5th, 6th, 7th players. It's odd, actually.
I love
yeah.
Ibriz's. I
Like-
love Ibriz's.
Like, if you look at that
compliments
roster, it's
sometimes.
not necessarily like a bad looking roster. It's
It's
just
fine. It's not got
Do you-
star potential though, I don't think.
Yeah, I'd say TSM before Dig. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Alright,
what else
so
you
you're
got,
happy
TJ?
with
I'm
that?
liking this. Unfire, unfire TL.
Please,
Oh, boy.
TJ, let me pee. Keep going. Keep
All
going.
right.
Hit me
We're
with the next
burning
one.
through it. Rank these leagues in order of how exciting they are. Now, I've given you 5 options here, obviously because I want to allow for flame.
Oh, an excitement?
LPL.
LPL, I think, gets number 1.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna lie about that.
Okay, so the LPL is your
Lek
most
or
interesting.
LCK?
Honestly, I'd say LCK for me has been boring the past bit. To be honest, it's been a bit boring for me.
Fair.
Now,
And then
to be
LCK.
fair, I've been. Yeah. Excuse me, I gotta fight for my PCS boys. all right?
PCS
I
over
think-
NA. You can fight that. You can fight that
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah, that one I'd say, yeah, PCS over NA.
Yeah.
So we've
But
dropped
only because
the
PCS has
LCS.
AHQ.
The originals, the OGs, the LCS get bumped down by the PCS.
Yeah. The top
Yeah.
4.
And you know,
Alright.
if PCS wasn't playing like half LCK, like mini LCK some games, I'd say over LCK as excitement. I'm talking about like game excitement, personally. I'm not talking
Sure.
like overall league. All right.
I gave you 5 options so that you could do that, so I shouldn't even really complain.
So I could purge one region without offending them because they can't see it.
Wow. Wow.
One more, TJ. One more.
All right,
slide.
here it is, and it's a quick one. I just wanted you to settle this for me, because I, personally need it. So you only got 2 options here, Ibriz. Exhaust or Ignite?
I
In what
personally
role?
support,
Okay,
obviously.
support.
No, I'm
Yeah,
leaving the floor open here. You
I actually
need to
prefer
sort this
exhaust in
out.
Earth. I run exhaust every game in Earth. Genuinely in
Oh,
Earth.
I hate you. You're literally the person I hate to play against.
Exhaust
that's
every game.
running
I play
exhaust.
exhaust lethality graves mid in Earth. That's how we do it.
I'd say exhaust. Exhaust just feels a lot better in the late game, personally.
It got
Cutting
buffed a
down.
lot as well.
Yeah, cutting like your 80, cutting the enemy 80 carry damage by 40%. Like, yeah, that's a bit disgusting. Sure, you get like 200 true damage with ignite, but they can literally do nothing and then they instantly die.
So we're settled on exhaust being the more important of the two.
Yep, we are.
All right.
Oh, this is great.
All right. Ibriz,
One more
tell-
slide, TJ. Show me another one.
No.
Well, you know, I wasn't prepped for it, but let me just dig this one out. Ibriz, tell me about yourself, and then I'll stay off your camera, and we can close the show without you. What's going on in your
Beautiful,
life?
thank
Where
you.
can people find you?
Not a lot right now, but maybe I'll announce something end of the week or maybe next week. We'll see. I don't know. You know, about your guess is as good as mine. You can find me at twitter.com/@. Well, I guess not the @ IbrizLol, IBRIZLOL. Yeah, just let me know.
And
Whatever.
you're doing
it's
more
good time.
EU amateur VOD reviews, right?
Yeah, I will. I bring on the coaches, I bring on some players, and we take a good look at that. It's good for game knowledge.
All right, you're excused, Ibriz. You may go. I'm leaving it
ya.
on as he stands up. I've
Oh my God.
miscalculated this, Opal, because
You
I don't
miscalculate?
actually have a screen with the two of us on it, so we just need to cut
Wow.
between very quickly.
Wow.
Because
okay, so
I
this
was
is now our podcast.
right, because I had
Okay.
like 2 minutes to sort everything out, right? And I was trying to figure
Yeah.
out which scenes I couldn't get working in time. And the amount of time I was having to put into each scene was huge, so I was just like, I'm never going to need to put me and the guest on the same scene, because it's normally Ibriz and the guest talking. And now we're here. So it's
Okay.
all kind of unraveled. Where can people
I'm glad.
find more of Opal casts in the near future?
Oh my lord. Everyone says Opal casts on everything. It drives me crazy.
That's because
It's just Opal.
it's your social media.
It's just
Hello.
Opal. Yeah,
Alex,
it's Opal cast.
Opal
but
casts
my
are
name is
shamble.
Opal. Oh,
Alex,
which way
Opal
is it?
casts
This
are
one. Okay,
shamble.
it's right there. It's right there. Opal casts on. No. It's like Joe. Don't call me Joe Miller.
People do that with Esports TJ as well. They tag me as Esports TJ at events, and I feel like it's pretty obvious that the Esports is just there so I can get the name.
I'm trying to think now. I'm just like, welcome everybody. My name's Alexander Esports Opal Archambault. And you're like, do you really need to clarify that you're an esport? I don't know. Oh yeah, you guys can follow. Obviously, the socials are there. I don't know what to really do with my hands. This is the Bobby issue all over again. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, of course. Facebook, same thing. Facebook is a little bit more popular actually in Southeast Asia, so I've been told to go ahead and push that a little bit more. Instagram, if you want to see really bad photos that I take at events once every 2 months, I also do that. You guys can also be sure to tune in onto the PCS itself at LOL Pacific on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook now. There is English coverage, and it's all adapt based on what language your setting is for. It actually will adapt. Well, the Facebook page will. You actually have to go to like LOL Pacific TW for like the Chinese feed and whatnot. Yeah.
And Ibriz, what are your thoughts on that? Uh-huh. You
Wow,
know,
I wasn't ready for that kind of in depth.
yeah, it was kind of a controversial take. I'm not gonna lie, Opal. So I'm glad that we're wrapping up here before he really gets us in trouble.
I didn't expect him to be leaking information like this. This is a
Yeah.
bit concerning, Ibriz. I thought we were above this.
Lacks a certain degree of professionalism. You can, of course, find more of the Qrank GG podcast over at qrank.gg. And I'd encourage you to head there as well for all of your esports analysis. They cover a lot of games, a lot of content right now about fighting games, with, of course, EVO coming up. They're also getting things going for Valorant as well as Overwatch League, which is continuing coverage, and all that stuff. But mostly League of Legends esports, because you don't have to watch that on YouTube. Before we close things out, you can also find me on Twitter. I'm at Ibriz and TJ. That's me on Twitch as well. This podcast will be available in audio format. So if you are watching this and you're like, man, I wish I didn't have to see your face, TJ, I got great news for you. You can head on over to the audio format. We got through this show, Opal. I thought at least 4 more things were going to break. So thank you for magically producer blessing this broadcast. For how thrown together it went pretty smoothly.
I'm glad. I'm glad, I can work some fairy godmother magic of production, which I don't really think I have. So
that was a run-up.
Just did an
the reason I
job.
passed back to you, you'll appreciate this because you're a caster. The reason I passed back to you was because I just realized that this broke.
Ah!
And I can't fix it.
I've
so thank
always
you very
wanted
much
to say
for
thanks
watching.
for what is that? Is that like? All right, now we'll go through this. Thanks for an A without a cross on it, a really shrunk T, curve, a U, okay, and there's like an I, and that's like, these are some, I don't know what you're trying to say here, TJ. I can't figure it out.
Look. Thanks for whinging.
You're fixing it right now, aren't you? Oh, you're trying.
You say you're fine, but I can see right through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions. I'll go through fire, I'll climb the mountains for you. Tell me, 'cause I'm looking out for you. This can't keep going on, no, 'cause you're not alone in this. We'll do this together. No, you're not alone in this. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We're gonna find them. La 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 la. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions. 'Cause you're not alone in this. We'll do this together. No, you're not alone.